Planet Dolan.
From pretending to be at a strip club to passionately kissing their fingers, the Planet Dolan crew reenacts some of the best true stories from our subreddit about the weirdest teachers we've ever had. I'm Melissa, and today I'll be your narrator. Number 10 was submitted by CaptainBumpy. Gooby's 4th grade teacher told her class that it was okay to stay in during lunch recess, if they wanted to read. There was a little reading area at the back of the classroom, so one day Gooby decided to go back there and read while everyone else was at recess. As she read her book, her teacher stormed into the classroom, slammed the door, and locked it. She pulled out an artichoke from her bag and began berating it in a profanity-laced tirade. Gooby's teacher was shouting about a pay raise while constantly calling the artichoke Vernon, which was the principal's name. Then she smashed the artichoke on the floor and stomped on it. After that, she composed herself, cleaned up the mess, and left the classroom. She never saw Gooby, who had sunk as deep as she could in her beanbag chair. Gooby didn't tell anyone about what had happened, as she didn't want an artichoke with her name on it. Number 9 was submitted by Dream3305. One day, Snoopy saw that there was a substitute teacher in her graphic design class. She wore a short skirt, carried pepper spray, and was very strict. Before lunch, Snoopy went to the bathroom like she usually did. When she walked in, she saw the substitute teacher laying on the floor. Her hands were covered in blood, and she kept mumbling something that made it sound as though she was trying to summon a demon. The next day, her graphic design teacher returned, and Snoopy told him about the weird substitute and what she found her doing in the girls' bathroom. Number 8 was submitted by SCP-170. While in high school, James Shark discovered that he was surrounded by a lot of weird teachers. One day, he was walking down the hallway when he heard loud music and a bunch of teachers having a good time. He poked his head into the classroom and saw at least 10 teachers, as well as the principal, acting as though they were at a strip club. A few months later, James Shark overheard a teacher tell another one that she saw a kid pull out his dick and show it to another student. Shocked, James Shark froze in his place. Soon after, to his delight, he transferred to another school. Number 7 was submitted by Whatamingo. Back when she was in school, Doopy had a Spanish teacher who was fresh out of college and very cute. All the boys looked forward to going to her class. Some even took out their phones to discreetly take photos of her. One day, she was going to show the class a documentary, but it turned out to be a video of her and her boyfriend having sex. The teacher rushed to the player and tried to turn it off, but the stop button wasn't working. About 30 seconds later, the teacher finally managed to stop the video. One guy in the back shouted, "Show me your tits or I'm telling on you, slut!" Since she didn't want to get fired, the teacher flashed her boobs to the class. While the boys enjoyed the show, Doopy wasn't enthused. She also wondered how a sex tape featuring her teacher mistakenly ended up in the player instead of a documentary. Number 6 was submitted by Mr. Ghostly Gibbous. Ghostos and his classmates were working on an assignment where they had to put on skits that recreated scenes from Shakespeare through the lens of a modern movie. Everyone was being very loud, which began to annoy their teacher. It got to the point where the teacher was so annoyed by the noise that he lay down on the floor and began to wiggle around as though he was having a seizure. Throughout his wriggling around, the teacher kept hissing like a snake. While everyone thought it looked very weird, the teacher's strategy for quieting everyone down actually worked. Number 5 was submitted by Punkblue. Derek went to Catholic school, so needless to say he went to many masses throughout his time there. One teacher said he strongly believed in Christ's power to the point where she would claim that one prayer to Jesus could cure depression. She would also go so far as to tell Muslim and Buddhist students that Jesus was the reason that they could be what they were. One day, before going to Mass, Derek's teacher told him and his classmates to write down their sins on a piece of paper because they were going to go to a confessional Mass. When everyone handed in their pieces of paper, they went to Mass. During this Mass, the teacher put the pieces of paper into a tin and lit them on fire. When it was time to put out the fire, however, the teacher took the tin and ran into the vestibule because she had a hard time putting it out. Derek and his classmates watched her desperately stomp on the tin, screaming, "Go out, you stupid fire!" She kicked the tin halfway across the courtyard before looking back at everyone. Even the priest was giggling while still trying to conduct mass. He told everyone, "Whoever laughs loses their lunch." Derek decided he didn't want lunch and burst out laughing anyway. Number 4 was submitted by AnotherAverageRage. When Hellbent was in high school, he had a weird teacher that was also very mean and would yell all the time. She would even punish kids without the administrators knowing. One day, she made the terrible mistake of yelling at Hellbent for saying can instead of may when he asked if he could go to the bathroom. After giving him permission, she instantly got mad at him again for not pushing his chair in. She called him a worthless imbecile under her breath, pissing Hellbent off. It turned out that he recorded almost everything the teacher did wrong on his phone. He would hide it so she wouldn't see it. After he showed the footage to his administrator, the teacher was fired. A few weeks later, Hellbent was at the mall with some friends. They decided to separate and go into separate stores. When he was done at one of the stores, Hellbent had to go to the bathroom. As he walked into the bathroom, he noticed his old teacher, out of the corner of his eye, but didn't pay any attention to her. After using the bathroom, Hellbent walked out to find his teacher waiting for him. It was obvious that she was pissed off at him for getting her fired. So, as he tried to walk away, she kicked him in the groin, making him fall to the floor. He looked up to yell at her, but she was gone. A few minutes later, his friends found him and tried to help. Hellbent said he was fine and that he just fell, since he didn't want to admit that an older woman got the best of him. Number 3 was submitted by You Are a Cutie 420. Zaragamba had a very weird teacher in elementary school. She had a weird habit of bringing a bottle of water that she would mix with a little bit of milk. After mixing them together, for some reason, his teacher would dab a little bit of concoction in her eye with her finger. Then she would drink the rest of it. Zaragamba only saw her do it 4 times within the school year. He never had the courage to ask her why she did that. Number 2 was submitted by Anna Was Here. One day in 7th grade, Princess Proton was taking a test in her math class. Her teacher was sitting at her desk in front of the room, watching everyone. When Princess Proton glanced up at her teacher, she saw her look at her fingers before passionately kissing them like an insane person. Her teacher apparently thought that nobody was looking. Princess Proton nudged her friend who sat next to her, wanting her to look at their teacher, but almost immediately noticed her teacher giving her the evil eye. As soon as she saw her teacher's angry expression, Princess Proton just continued taking the test. Number 1 was submitted by Hot Wheels Martini 26. When Spinal Palm was in middle school, he had a weird science teacher. On the last day of school, his teacher told everyone to clear the table so he could do a dinosaur impression. Once the tables were cleared, the teacher suddenly jumped up and began to do a velociraptor impression. He tucked in his arms and stomped around the tables while making dinosaur sounds. The teacher did the impression for about half an hour. Towards the end, Spinal Palm realized that he left his water bottle on the table. Before he could grab it, the teacher picked it up with his mouth and threw it at him, spilling water all over Spinal Palm. Despite getting wet and being weirded out, Spinal Palm thought it was the best thing he ever saw. Huge thanks for the folks over on our Planet Dolan subreddit for submitting their stories. We have another question for you. What's a secret romance story you've never told anyone before? Let us know in the Reddit page linked below, and you might be featured in a future countdown. This video was made possible by our fans over on Patreon. Thanks for your support, guys. Catch you guys next time.